Good morning, everyone, and we welcome you to our Saturday morning Bible study questions class, and we're recording from the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, Plainfield, New Jersey, the United States of America. This morning is October 13th, 2018. Before we get started, Tom was going to speak to us a little bit about the scheduling, upcoming scheduling. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, okay. So we got our schedule up for this year, and we should have for October through the end of the year. So any dates that are still open, please consider volunteering. We are not going to have a Bible study, around the holidays. So the Saturday after Thanksgiving and then the Saturday near Christmas, we will not have a Bible study. But otherwise, please feel free to jump in and pick one of the open days for a Bible study. We'd all love that.
Actually, Tom, you had mentioned that unless somebody felt led to do one, and I really love the Bible study after Thanksgiving, so actually I'm going to do one for that day after when Christmas season kicks off, a Bible study. So.
Well, wonderful, fantastic.
But I did put down that we weren't doing one the weekend around Christmas.
Oh, there you go.
Also considering not the one the Saturday before Thanksgiving, but I'll let you know about that. We might take that Saturday off.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you for your volunteering. It's much appreciated. And we will get started this morning with Charlie from Pennsylvania.
Good morning. First, we have our quote from Message for 1901 by Mary Baker Eddy. Quote, "Finally, brethren, wait patiently on God. Return blessing for cursing. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Be steadfast, abide and abound in faith, understanding, and good works. Study the Bible and the textbooks of our denomination. Obey strictly the laws that be, and follow your leader only so far as she follows Christ." End quote.
Thank you.
A very humble counsel.
Yeah, could we find better instruction anywhere?
No.
So it's a wonderful, beautiful quote. Thank you. Yeah, the humility of Mrs. Eddy is just overwhelming. And she's giving us absolute orders. We are to study the Bible and textbook and obey strictly the laws that be. So you can ask yourself, do you do that? Or is it just a quick run through the lesson in the morning? Or are you really studying it? We should be. These Bible studies certainly help us get into the Bible.
And do I strive to know what the laws are that be? There's a lot of false laws that are pretending that they are, but aren't. So that's why we have these classes.
Yeah, so we are well versed in the laws that be, the God's laws that be, and we aren't fooled by mortal mind, so-called pretend laws. Anyone else?
Well, I'll add one thought here. So, in the last part of this quote, you think it through, just having been raised in Christian Science, a lot of times you see Christian Science going off in a direction of some sort of new thought or alternative healing, and they kind of lose their anchor in the Bible. So this brings us back to our anchor. Study the Bible. Follow your leader only so far as she follows Christ. So we never want to forget that anchor.
Nope. Good one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very, very important.
Yeah, I think the whole reason that the New Age is so popular is with people is that it doesn't base itself on the Bible. And so it's sort of like an easy out. It's like, yay, I can have this great sort of quasi-religion, and I don't have to read the Bible. Woohoo! And then it just goes nowhere. It just doesn't deliver because you need the Bible.
Right. It doesn't.
That's a very good point. Thank you.
It doesn't teach you the laws that be, does it?
And that was said, and that is so true. People are so, wow, well, I'm spiritually, I'm into spirituality, and but without, what did Tom say? The anchor, what brings you, chart of life, the direction, the laws that be, yes, and it will leave you flying around up there without your anchor. Anyone else?
Hey, Shardy.
Okay. The topic is the straight and narrow. And if I may add, hearken, O Israel. Shall we go ahead?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Question. Oh, first of all, the readings are Numbers 25, Deuteronomy 4, and Miscellaneous Writings by Mary Baker Eddy, starting at page 333, 22 to 29. And then question number 1. What does Moses have to say about the worship of Baal? And that's Numbers 25.
Somebody want to read it?
No, that's the whole.
Oh, that's whole.
No.
I think the important part is, slay ye every one of his men that were joined unto Baal, Peor. It came down to.
Well, maybe we should clarify that everyone knows what is Baal.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Worship of Baal sounded like a lot of fun. You like that kind of thing?
But that depends on who you are in the Baal worship, because, as it was pointed out, is that arch is marching across the world, and one of the big things was child sacrifice. It wasn't much fun for them. And the other thing is that it was rather interesting, and I can't really pin it on Baal, but many of the tribes around Israel at the time would also do a sacrifice, a human sacrifice, and then the priests had to eat of it. And now I understand so much better why all this idol worship is so outlawed by God, because once you take that first little lie, it seems like the lies get bigger and bigger and worse, and that's where it all ends.
Thank you very much. It's important we understand this. I mean, we talked a week or so ago about the Ark of Baal that's going around the cities in our country right before, not just our country, the world, right before some significant event is about to happen, like an election or something like that. And I get these sometimes emails from a Christian news broadcasting. They were saying, and I'm not sure how they know this, but they were saying now in our country there are more witches than Presbyterians, and that this thing is been growing by leaps and bounds. When I told that to Elsie, she said, "Well, do you remember what you said, Elsie?"
Mary, I was on mute. I'm sorry. I don't recall exactly what I said. No.
Well, you said that, God doesn't know witches, so there's no such thing as witches.
Oh, well, that's true. He knows nothing about them. He doesn't see evil.
That's it. He doesn't see it. But and I'm amused because anytime we talk about the devil or anything, it's usually on YouTube. There's somebody writes, "Well, I thought Christian Scientists didn't believe in devils." So even though we go over and over their nothingness, which is the main point, but we do have to bring it up. We cannot be stupid and ignorant about these things.
We have to acknowledge their claim.
As we denounce before, and that's this Eddie.
But if we don't acknowledge
Denounce power.
and denounce their power,
And also there are people who believe in witchcraft.
Yes, the world belief of it is what needs to be denounced.
So here were the Israelites, and all the people around them, it seems, Moabites, the Midianites, they all had some kind of idea that there was a supernatural, but they thought it was like a superhuman person that was sometimes good and sometimes evil, and was needed to be negotiated with. So they had this really messed up concept of what God was. And they sacrificed children to this God, hoping that this God would be kind to them. They did all kinds of strange and cruel things. And it was going on all around him.
I read various definitions of Baal. He's the king of hell, the god of fertility, the god of storm, which I found interesting. And Mrs. Eddy, in that quote, refers to it as the god of sun. And that it was rooted, this was what Tom and Mike were talking about, the worship was rooted in sensuality and involved ritualistic prostitution in the temples, as well as human sacrifice of babies. So, but Mrs. Eddy also has said that our gods today are worse than the barbaric gods of the ancient times. We will get into that, but it seems like what could be worse than this, but we will get into it. So be aware of it. Be aware that, I guess there are these witches that are trying to do hexes and other things to prevent certain things from happening that they think shouldn't happen. So we need to be aware and be working and knowing the reign of Christ, the reign of God. Hallelujah. God omnipotent reigneth. And this is why our watches, and this is why we feel. Many of you tell me, you're feeling so uneasy and that you feel like you have to work all the time. Well, we do.
So get used to it.
Yeah.
And don't be overwhelmed by it. Don't be intimidated by it. Don't be fearful of it. You have all the power of God behind you to handle whatever comes. And remember, God doesn't bring anything to you in the form of what might appear to be a problem or a tough situation. He doesn't bring anything to you that you aren't ready to take care of.
In some of the faiths of today, they believe the devil is in charge. And he will be for 1,000 years. So there's a lot more to be overcome with a thought like that out there trying to give it power.
Well, and we understand, and I didn't understand this till more recently, that Hitler practiced the dark arts, as you want to call them, the dark arts, and he was hoping for a reign of 1,000 years of Nazism. So this is not to be fooled with. Not to be fooled with. We are working to
destroy these false beliefs.
Yes, the nothingness, that there is any power apart from God. It's simply not true. Now, Linda, did you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, I have actually a lot of things to add. I did a lot of looking into Baal because I was trying to bring it home to myself now, because you think of Baal as maybe being these marble idols or something, but really I took it to thought, and some of the things that I came up with was Baal was considered a god of apostasy, turning away from God. Many people believe man's survival was dependent on Baal's provision. So I'm thinking, how many things do I think my survival is dependent on? Baal was considered an adaptable god, so you could make him whatever you wanted, and that's why he kind of changed forms. And then there was a definition in idol that I liked in the 1828, which said, an idol is a thing which usurps the place of God in the hearts. And then they do talk about images. And really, images is a thing formed in your thinking. And one of the definitions I saw for Baal was more of a god of their own minds, little minds, than it was a god of their hands. And then I came across, I've been going through some papers at Plainfield, and one little packet had something called Spiritual Interpretations of the Ten Commandments by Mary Baker Eddy. And I don't know where it came from, but it's in a collection of things that do come from Carpenter's collection at other places. For the second commandment, not to have any idols, she writes, quote, false creation. Mortal mind forms its own concepts and fears or loves them, end quote. And so that kind of is where I went with this. Also, I did see mentioned that a lot of thoughts were trying to alert Christians that this is trying to look appealing nowadays, and it hides behind things like when we were talking about the Baal entrance was hiding behind, we're restoring antiquities, and it's supposed to be a symbol of courage and solidarity and tolerance. So it's hiding behind good to try to be appealing. I do feel also a lot of this New Age is really Baal worship, because it's all behind, love and nature, natural things, this peace, love, and without the sword of truth, and destroying evil. And so I think we have a lot of Baal worship going right out under our noses. But anyways, that's about what I have to add.
Well, that was wonderful. Thank you. And that goes along, this last verse in Numbers 25, where they vex you with their wiles, wherewith they have beguiled you in the matter of Peor and in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of a prince of Midian, their sister, which was slain in the day of the plague. But another interpretation of that was that harassed you with their own schemes to seduce God's people to sin. Seduce God's people to sin with their own schemes. Now, this presenting it is nice, and they present it to our children. Oh, it's good. It's just, earth and love. Is Dale W. here yet? No. Carol, I want you to speak to the watch that Dale wanted to have that we haven't had yet, but we will have.
Oh, there is so much directed at children. The latest thing we heard is that there's the biggest pornography group in the world is making video games directed at children. Some of it is even in cartoon version, and it's it's all very promiscuous, and it's horrible.
Good morning.
It's leading them, very much astray into materiality and into sensuality. Now, children are not sensual beings. They're God's spiritual ideas. And to try to aim them in that direction is a sin.
That brings me to another thing, is they try to make this all normalize it, and make it seem casual and acceptable.
Yes, and also what Dale was talking about quite a bit was the sex education in the schools were corrupting the children in some instances and introducing things to an innocent young mind that they shouldn't be exposed to at that point. It's very, very wicked. And you see, this is why we cannot be asleep and not know about it. Parents, grandparents, teachers, everybody needs to know about this and rise up in rebellion against it. And these video games, they are aimed to getting young people addicted to pornography. We already know that there's this addiction to a lot of this stuff anyway, because they build it into your products, I guess. So then they add that to it. So this is why you have to watch what children are doing. You don't just leave them alone with these things and let them just play all day video games, which I understand many do. And we know it comes in through movies and other things, through our institutes, our colleges. They say that's how it will work, and I say they. All of this, you can call it whatever you want to. It's animal magnetism. You don't like the word Baal or devil or error or mortal mind. It's animal magnetism. But you must not be stupid to it. Now,
and we need to be aware that there is a concerted effort by many, many, many people in this world to profit from their ability to lead children or adults astray.
They're making money.
They're making money.
Yeah, they're making money.
And they don't care whether it's moral or immoral. They don't care.
But if you teach your children correctly, you give them a good Bible-based background, they will be repelled by this. They will think, oh my God. They will be repelled. And this is the importance of, and this is all in Deuteronomy, isn't it? About teaching your children, writing it on their foreheads, remembering all the things that God has done. Talk about all the victories you've had, all the things that God has done in the past. That's what Moses was doing to these children of Israel. And we must do this as well. Teach them the Bible. Then they will be solidly grounded, and this other stuff won't appeal to them. They'll be turned off by it. A red flag will go up. But if you don't, then they're just, what hope do these little ones have?
And then really big, huge red flags go off in the form of suffering. Because it can't prosper.
So just to give a sense of the wickedness of Baal, there's, you can do, just about anything you want to do. So maybe this seems like a bit of freedom and independence, okay? But that's actually the antithesis of what Moses had told the Israelites, because God has made a covenant with his people. So you can see the complete opposite here of Baal worship, anything goes, versus with God, he's made a promise to us and expects us to, promise back to God and live up to that. So we have a lot to live by. So versus do whatever you want to do. Sounds good.
One of the things that stuck to me when Linda was reading about Baal, she says it was the god of apostasy. In other words, they want people to leave their God, be separate from him. We have so much of this secularism in society today that we can see what the effect of this. And the thing is, it's induced so much instability in society, whereas the Christian influence has been actually a saving grace and has stabilized society so much. But the point being, we can't be pulled away from our God.
No, and when you know what God is, and that's why I think I've mentioned, I had a young girl tell me recently she didn't believe in God, but then I asked, well, do you believe in love? She said, oh, yeah. Do you believe in truth? Yes. Just take our synonyms of God. Of course they believe in those things. And therefore, you do believe in God. You don't believe in maybe some false God, old theology God you've been taught, but the Christian Science God, the true living God, you do believe in. Everyone does. Everyone does, because it's within. It's just a matter of re-education. I'm going to have Gary read the first paragraph. This is from Science and Health, the 3rd edition. This is Eddie wrote a whole chapter on demonology. Anyway.
The grandest feature of biblical history is its honesty. But the portraiture of a Judas was no pleasant task for the loving John, although he fulfilled that task as the ambassador of truth. It is due to the period that introduces metaphysics and establishes the sovereignty of mind to protect mankind in general from the abuses of a released power hitherto restrained by law, even the capacity of mortal mind to act without being known or seen in propria persona committing the act. The history of the harmless features of mesmerism is yielding to the history of its aggressive form. The warp and woof of crime, hidden in the dark recesses of mortal thought, are weaving webs so complicated and subtle they ensnare the age into indolence of inquiry, producing the very apathy on this subject that the criminal desires. Mesmerism has its definition today in demonology. Someone has said mesmerism is a problem lending not itself to an easy explanation and development. It implies the exercise of despotic control and is much more likely to be abused by its possessor than employed otherwise for the individual or society. Mary Baker Eddy.
Complacency. That's what it's betting on. That you're just complacent. You're so wrapped up in your own little world, your own life, your own whatever, that you don't see what's going on around you. So now, well, Florence, Gary, and I had an opportunity to visit the Cement Center, as I call it. And I would like, a couple of days ago, we were there on Thursday. So I would like Florence to tell us about it.
It's just, I don't know the word for it, but I was so saddened by what I saw. I was at the Mary Baker Eddy Library some years ago, maybe 7 years ago, and at least they had at the upstairs, they had a section about her life and audios that would tell about Mrs. Eddy's life. And this time we went in there, and there's nothing in that library, although the outside says Mary Baker Eddy Library. when you go there, only the Maparian is left. And it's just so sad what's going on there. The gentleman tells us that all that upstairs is now occupied by business offices. So there's no library there for the public to go and see anything about Mary Baker Eddy now. It's just a Maparian. And then they have this, it's like picture of her and a video going, but it's just so, it's like something you would see in a bus station or something. I wish it wasn't there at all. It just, besides all that, you can hardly see the church. It's all, building all around it, as if it's being buried, really. I don't know.
I think that best describes it. It's being buried by the materialism in the organization, the VOD.
We had gone and we had given you our description of what we saw. I mean, we were all in a state of shock and disbelief. Florence wanted to go. She thought we should see the library. She said there were, Mrs. Eddy's chair and a few things like that were there. And so we went, because seeing is believing. She had to see. Yeah. She had to see it. Now none of you have to see it, really. I'm not planning ever to go back again. It's very disturbing. It's toxic. It's
Baal worship.
Yes. Yes. Have to. And the guy at the desk, which Florence was talking to, I mean, it's like a Twilight Zone. That's why I talked about this after what Gary read, because he just he didn't know the time of day. Florence kept asking, where's this place?
Where is the library? And then he said, oh, it's the offices up there. They needed a space or something, so it's just the offices. Nothing anymore.
But he acts surprised that she would even ask such a question.
Can I just ask for clarity, because it was not too many years ago, they advertised a lot about this new library, which I never quite understood.
No.
Thought they already had a library, but they made a big thing and they called it the Mary Baker Eddy something library. And
it was like called the Betterment for Humanity, I believe.
Yes. So you're saying that that's not there now? There's no library to go to?
There's no library to go to. There's a research, a small section there that says research, where there's a gentleman sitting there. We didn't go there. But I know that when I went before, there was the whole upstairs. There was her desk was one on the left side there, and then there's different stations, but things about her life and books and stuff like that. Nothing there. He told us there's nothing up there but offices. It's not there. Only a tour for the Maparian is what's left.
So yes, what you're talking about, all that law about Mary Baker Eddy Library, everything is there. Go there. We'd gone a few times, as we'd said, to the center. I thought maybe we'd go to the library, but it was always closed, and someone told me it's hardly ever open. So we never got to it. I hadn't really cared that much about it. But this time I said, okay, well, we'll go. Florence thought it was worth seeing. And no, it's not there. All that big hoopla. And the guy at the desk acted like he didn't even know what Florence was talking about. But I only bring this up as an example of how this works. I mean, I don't know how anyone with any kind of eyes and ears and spiritual sense could go to this place and think everything is okay. It is not okay. So, no. It is not there. It's no longer there. It has nothing to do with science. Nothing.
And it has Mrs. Eddy's name over the front door, which is that she strictly forbade.
She said, never put my name on a building. And this is a good example why. This is partly why Florence was so upset. It has her name. It says all this. Go in. There's her picture on a poster board. and yet there's nothing left. But this is the work of, call it what you will, demonology, Baal worship, pulls you away.
Like the organization, it's empty.
It's absolutely empty.
Mm-mm.
And to see the beautiful church buried amongst huge, huge buildings. So you can't even see it until you're right on top of it.
That was what shocked us when we went a couple of years ago. We thought, this can't be it. This is something else. And we rode around looking for the church. And that was it. It looked so tiny and so small and so insignificant. And what a shame.
And when it's all finished, I don't know that you can even see the church because there's so much all around it, though. I mean, is it intentionally around it so you can't see it anymore?
Yes. So, well, it came the day that we were working on this, so thought it was a very good example, and now we will, anyone else on Numbers 25, very important.
Yes, I have something to say. What did Moses have to say about the worship of Baal? 25:5. Moses told Israel's officials, each of you must put to death any of your men who have worshipped Baal. And he did. They did. There were about 20,000. And then Phinehas came along as Moses was preaching, and a man went off, an Israelite went off with a Midianite woman, and Phinehas killed both of them with one sword. And that stopped. That made Phinehas a warrior, and the rest of the killing stopped.
Yes. And this had nothing to do with God. This was error, killing itself. I've always wanted to use that story of Phinehas in a lesson, but no, it just seemed a little harsh. But if anyone can do it, that would be interesting. So anyway, thank you, Shardy. And now if someone could read the quote from Miscellaneous Writings, page 333. Does anyone have that? Jeremy?
Paul asked, what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? The worshippers of Baal worship the sun. They believe that something besides God had authority and power, could heal and bless, that God wrought through matter, by means of that which does not reflect him in a single quality or quantity. The grand realities of mind, thus to exemplify the power of truth and love.
Thank you. So that's a good, simple explanation of the whole thing and puts error in its place. Nothing besides God has authority or power. Nothing besides God can heal and bless. We must never turn to anything else. And watch. That's why we're admonished to watch, work, and pray.
I'd like to say something about the church in Boston.
Yep.
It's very interesting to me that Mrs. Eddy, with all she did, said, follow your leader only so far as she follows Christ. And everything she did made the organization bigger and its reach further. And then the board of directors comes along and says, follow us without question, and they lead it all the way down into nothing. So I just find that very fascinating, the change.
Well, it's instructive, isn't it?
Mm.
Or it says, follow us without question. No reference to God or Christ. And it's going down the sewer. Good point. Exactly. And Mrs. Eddy, God bless her. Follow her only so far as she follows the Christ.
I was only here a little bit when I first heard that, and I found that to be very impressive. That everything I've ever read about any other religion or way of belief is usually, follow me Exactly. So I've always really found that inspiring.
Yeah.
If the people follow the board of directors only as far as they follow God, they would be destroyed. They're not following God at all.
Well, they wouldn't be followed, yeah.
Yeah, they would have no following. And as it is, they're getting fewer and fewer following. So, very few.
And I think also one thing that is concerning, I read that, I hope it's not true, that some of these Ivy League universities have secret societies and some of the rituals and stuff like that. I mean, I thought this is a Christian country, and to me that's also hypocritical, and going that route as if there's some other power apart from God that can shape something here. It's equal. I find it disturbing as well.
Right. It's another way it would try to seduce the children of God to get people of God to sin, putting them in universities where things are practiced like that. That's why you've got to watch, work, pray, have a good connection with your children.
In Teaching and Addresses by Kimball, there's an article called Quenching the Fiery Darts of the Wicked. One of the sentences reads, I am not bound by any deceiving personality. And that's on page 247. It's a wonderful address. Wonderful.
Thank you. Maybe we'll put that up on the Jeremy. That's a good one. Say that again, that one quote. Janet? Be unmute.
Yeah, somebody's on.
Okay, well, we can put that on the carousel. That was very good. I kind of remember that article.
Can I mention something?
Sure.
I was just looking up the Mary Baker Eddy Library online, and it says it's located in Northeastern University. So I'm wondering if they've kind of taken that over. It doesn't say the Christian Science Center.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the publishing building
is leased
to Northeastern University.
So that's probably why.
Yeah, maybe they. I don't know.
Well, and you see, you lease it to a university. What they're not going to want it. And you see, Longyear Museum used to tell us that the Mary Baker Library had all of Mrs. Eddy's things, like her chair. That's who had it. So, so now they don't have it. Maybe it went back to Longyear. But I'm concerned as to what will happen. Do you know how valuable, to some person, how much they would pay for Mrs. Eddy's chair? The money that the Cement Center, the organization, will make if they start selling this stuff, because they don't care. They do not care. All of this Cement Center is leased out. Everything is leased, including thank you. That's probably Northeast is leased out, where the library once was.
Right, and they probably can determine what they want to do with it.
They probably can. Absolutely.
Since it's not there anymore.
That's right. Why would they care about it at all? I said it saddens me to say it. I don't know if the BOD has done one thing right. What have they done right? We've lost the monitor, church center, everything. They would have...
Radio programs? I like those.
You like what?
The radio programs.
Oh, the radio program. Oh, yeah. Great.
No, they were good. It was like, was that 50 years ago or something?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They were great.
Uh-huh. I used to listen to that, too.
I think they're still on now. I've forgotten which radio station it is. Either WOR or WABC. I think that's WOR, I think. At 7 o'clock in the morning, I've heard it advertised.
I don't think we want to listen to it today.
No.
There's a phone number you can dial in and hear Sentinel Radio where they give testimonies and hear the Mother Church lesson read. There's a phone number that anybody can, not that you might want to, but I'll send it in so you can see what it is.
So on a previous trip to Boston, you talked about, after that trip, about the Mary Baker Eddy's had selected certain things to be put on the walls of the original church.
Yes.
Do you want to mention that? Like, is there a book that lists all those?
Yes, there is. And we have it, Jeremy. Jeremy can give it to you. You're there. You can get it today.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there's a little pamphlet. She handpicks them. And they're not the nice lovey-dovey. Most of them aren't anyway. They're, they're the tough ones. Never breathe an immoral atmosphere is one we've quoted often, but also about leaving your sisters and brothers. And they're the tough statements. Many of them are. Because she knew, but no one ever pays any attention to them, unfortunately. This, again, the complacency, the sleep, and you see it's very contagious. You have to watch it. You were either like so turned off and horrified by it as we were, or you go in there and you get, oh, wow, this is lovely, isn't this? Look at the Maporium, and oh, wow, it's great. And you just sleep on.
Speaking of
any group you go into, remember that. Never breathe an immoral atmosphere unless an attempt to purify it. Any place you ever go, you carry that because it's there waiting for you to put you to sleep, to mesmerize you. The human mind is. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say is, speaking of tough statements, one of the more innocent ones in the Bible is the high places, and what it turns out is that that's actually where they did the human sacrifices, and that's why it was so important to tear those down and get rid of them. And I had a quick question on the, which maybe nobody can answer, but my understanding was that there was this trove of wonderful Mary Baker Eddy things that they were hiding. Is that now no longer? Has that been recycled, or does that exist anymore, or is that all gone?
Who knows where it is? I know that the library, they had her desk and her chair that I remember clearly seeing up there in the library. But I don't know.
My understanding that some of these things went back to Longyear, but I will tell you this, Longyear is no longer independent. It is full of principians who are not independent, and you can feel it when you go there. It's changed in the few years that I've been going. The atmosphere has changed drastically, I would say. So I'm saying that Longyear, if they do have these things, they're going to go the way of all flesh, excuse the expression, but the BOD will own everything, probably Chestnut Hill too, and the houses. That's where all of this is going. So we don't need any symbols of her, but it's very sad to me because, well,
deserves more protection.
It yes, certainly does. It didn't have to be this way if everyone was doing what they should. So all we can do is keep on doing what we're doing and re-educating people to the truth. And who knows, keep telling Jeremy someday he can buy them.
Well, I know I pray often that they don't throw away that stuff, those archives, that they know we're here, they know we want it, send it here. We'll take care of it. I'm not all that worried about the building, but the thought of them trying to suppress like Carpenter's writings and stuff, and if they have anything on par with that, that's the stuff that I want. The good stuff, the stuff that will help.
And we have this library committee that are poring over everything. Thank you, Tom and Linda, and now Candy's it. So they're pouring over, so we will preserve it, not only on the internet, but have it in paper. So we have a backup plan.
I think that's a wonderful thing, Jeremy, because my understanding was that there was that trove that they wouldn't let except special people look at. And the only proof I have of that is that Longyear, some of their DVDs have some wonderful stuff that I've never seen any other place. And the only place I can imagine they got it from was in there. If that only brushes the surface, there's so much extra there, so it is a wonderful thought to have it dumped on a playing field someday.
Yeah. Liz, do you remember the story? We were at lunch with someone who had worked for the Monitor for years. He's disassociated himself with all of this now, but he remembered a story about Mrs. Eddy who we hadn't heard. Do you remember? Do you remember it, Florence?
Oh, she had an adopted son.
The coffee or the damn.
Yeah, an adopted son who was a rabble-rouser and was always doing things to displease her, I guess, time to time. And finally he did something that's very displeasing to her, and she said, damn.
They probably didn't want anyone to know that she ever said anything like that, but to me that's great, you know. So she spoke to it. And also, someone found the story, I guess, was it Rick that told us about when she went into the lion's den, put her hand on the paw of the lion. So a lot of these stories, please, if you know them and find them and have books, let Tom or Linda know, and we will preserve them. Now, we haven't gone to any more questions. I knew this one would take a while. So,
can I just mention something about the library before we go on?
Oh, please.
Back in 2002, the U.S. copyright laws were changing. So the Mother Church got wind of it and came up with this idea to spend $25 million to create this Mary Baker Eddy Library for the Betterment of Humanity, so that they could secure another 45 years of copyright protections for the writings. So their motives from the get-go were evil. They just wanted to control money and the publication of the documents because they knew that they would go into the private domain. So they built this library because there was something that if the writings were connected to a library, then they could go ahead with the copyright and continue a copyright. So they needed to scramble and build a library. And this was in 2002, I guess it opened. That was the same year that I discovered Plainfield. So people in the movement going to the churches knew that this was happening. People who really did their homework and did research. But what a difference in motivation between wanting to keep their hands on the money versus the Plainfield Church who wants to get it out freely to humanity. It just couldn't be more clear, the difference in the motivation. And evil motives will send you downhill quickly.
Yep. Well, thank you, Susan.
Yeah. Thank you.
That out.
I didn't know all that. Thank you. Yeah,
some begin wrongly and end wrongly. So.
What was that?
No, I said you begin wrongly and you end wrongly.
That's why everything they do turns to dust, because their motives have been so impure. It couldn't be otherwise. Otherwise, we would see different results. That's right, yes. It seems to be all about money, and we quote Mike often about what it's turned into a real estate.
Yeah, property management.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Wheeling and dealing.
So there are a lot less churches now, aren't there? I mean, a lot less members.
A lot less members, yes.
Yep.
But we know that the remnant, which we talked about last week, goes on, and the leaven of truth goes on everywhere. It's working. They cannot kill it. It cannot be killed. It's possible. It's the truth. So, thank God. But the organization is dying. It will die. I can't see any hope for it.
It's the Holy Comforter that Christ promised that to never go away.
Right, it cannot. All right, well, anyone else who wants to... Or should we...
Well, we should at least, I think, mention that we shouldn't, with all the stuff we discussed, that there's not a sense of sadness or anger or anything like that. I like to look to Herbert Eustace, okay? So from his point of view, it looked like he lost a lot with the Publishing Society, et cetera, et cetera. But when he was excommunicated, he said he found his freedom. That's not a quote, but essentially that's how he looked at it. So he was given his freedom.
That's right, and that is definitely true. And this is all said without any malice. I know I've been accused of that, but I have no malice. I just want to inform the public of it, which I feel is who is telling of the foe and ambush. So.
And what is the foe but the human mind?
The human mind.
It's not foe.
That's all.
It's the human mind.
And I'm sure Mrs. Eddy knew a lot of this was going to happen, if not all of it. And also, yes, our excommunication was the greatest thing that could have happened to us.
And with everything crumbling in this cement center, maybe that's what it's going to take to free all the other churches.
I'm sure. Yeah. Something's happening. God is working. I have no doubt God is working. And whatever God wants to remain will remain. And anything else isn't worth remaining. So, but we doing our work to the best of our highest sense of right ability.
And so my observation is that if the cement organization was so important, Mary Baker Eddy would have been there all the time. And, maybe someone can talk to how often she went there, but she generally was not there.
No, and my understanding is she never even went into the extension. She looked at it and went home. The original she was in a few times. So she did know.
I think she went into the extension twice, if I recall.
Twice.
And that was it.
Thank you.
Well, hymn 337, I feel, is that comfort for me. Beautiful. Nothing can stop it. Nothing can stop it. 337.
Can you read it for us, and maybe we should end with that.
I don't have my hymn.
Go get it, Gary.
Bruce has one.
Yeah, I have 337.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Theories which thousands cherish pass like clouds that sweep the sky. Creeds and dogmas all may perish. Truth herself can never die. Worldlings blindly may refuse her, close their eyes and call it night. Learned scoffers may abuse her, but they cannot quench her light. Thrones may totter, empires crumble, all their glories cease to be, while she, Christ-like, crowns the humble, and from bondage sets them free.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Bruce. And thank you, Shardy.
Thank you, Shardy.
Thank you, Shardy.
Yeah, thank you, Shardy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you all tomorrow.
Tomorrow.